Stay right where you are, hands visible. Understood, officer. I served in the Marines. I know the procedure.
The gas station was quiet that morning. Cold December air hung low, sharp enough to sting your lungs. There was no rush, no chaos, just the steady hum of pumps and the soft crackle of a flag snapping in the wind. At pump number 4 stood Sergeant David Williams. He wore a United States Marine Corps dress uniform, deep blue coat, white cover, medals aligned with perfect precision across his chest. The words U.S. Marines were stitched clearly across the front. This wasn't for show. Just hours earlier, Williams had stepped off a plane after 9 months overseas. Afghanistan. Combat zone. 3 deployments over 10 years of service. He had driven all morning. 50 miles left before he would surprise his mother, a reunion she didn't know was coming. Inside the station, a patrol car rolled in and stopped. Officer Troy Herrick stepped out. Coffee in hand. He was off duty, but still in uniform. Still armed. Still carrying authority. As he exited the store, his eyes caught something unusual. The uniform, the medals, and the man wearing them. Ricks slowed his steps. He stared. Instead of recognition, something darker surfaced. Suspicion. He had never seen a black Marine in uniform in this town before. And rather than assume honor, he assumed fraud. Ricks walked toward the pump. His hand hovered near his belt. "That your uniform?" he asked. Williams turned calmly, meeting his gaze. "Yes, sir," he said. "I just got back from deployment." There was no thank you, no welcome home. "You got ID proving you're military?" "Yes, sir. It's in my pocket." Williams moved slightly, exactly as trained. "Hands up." Ricks snapped. "Don't reach for anything." Williams froze. "Officer," he said carefully, "you asked for my ID." The air shifted. Cars idled. A customer paused mid-step. In that moment, Officer Ricks had no idea what he had just set in motion. Within 72 hours, the Pentagon would be involved. The Department of Justice would open a federal case, and the quiet Marine standing at pump number 4 would soon be forced to his knees in the uniform he wore to serve his country. Hands up. On the ground. Now. The command cut through the air sharp. Sudden. Final. Sergeant Williams raised his hand slowly. Every movement was controlled. Deliberate. Years of combat training kicked in instantly. Stay calm. Don't escalate. Comply. "Sir," Williams said evenly. "I'm just trying to get home to my family." Officer Ricks stepped closer. "I said on the ground." Williams glanced around. 2 customers had stopped what they were doing. A woman near the entrance covered her mouth. An older man shook his head slowly, disbelief written across his face. Phones came out. Williams lowered himself to his knees. The concrete was cold, dirty. His dress uniform touched the ground. The same uniform he had worn just hours earlier at a welcome home ceremony, now pressed against oil-stained pavement. The medals on his chest dug into the concrete as he knelt. Metal against stone. Officer Ricks circled behind him, rough hands patting him down. From Williams's pocket came a military ID, then dog tags, then deployment orders, official documents stamped and signed. Everything real, everything legitimate. "You can call Camp Lejeune right now." Williams said calmly, "My commanding officer's number is on those papers." Ricks glanced at the ID. These could be fake. A gas station clerk stepped outside. "Officer," he said, trying to stay respectful, "I've seen Marines before. That uniform is real." Ricks didn't respond. An elderly customer, a veteran himself, spoke up. "Those medals are real," he said. "That's a Bronze Star." Still nothing. "You giving me attitude," Ricks snapped. "No. Seer." The answer was immediate. Ricks reached for his cuffs. Metal clicked shut around Williams's wrists. The sound echoed, metals clinking against steel. Sergeant David Williams, United States Marine, sat in handcuffs on the concrete for the crime of wearing the uniform he earned. And this was only the beginning. Sergeant Williams sat in the back of the patrol car, handcuffed, still wearing his Marine dress uniform. The medals on his chest caught the light through the window. Purple hearts. A Bronze Star. The irony was heavy. This man had survived combat zones, gunfire, explosions, moments where every second meant life or death. Yet here he was detained at a gas station in his own country, 50 miles from home. Sergeant David Williams was 28 years old. He joined the Marines straight out of high school. 10 years of service, 3 deployments to Afghanistan. He wasn't assigned to a desk. He was infantry. His Bronze Star came from one moment under fire. Williams's unit was ambushed. Bullets tore through the air. 3 Marines were pinned down, wounded. Exposed. Unable to move. Without waiting for orders, Williams ran forward. He moved into open fire, dragged each Marine to safety. One by one, he saved their lives. That act earned him the Bronze Star. The 2 Purple Hearts meant something else. They meant he had been hit twice. Shrapnel, gunfire, both times. After recovery, he returned to combat. His commanders described him the same way. Calm under pressure, reliable when things went wrong. They were preparing to recommend him for promotion to staff sergeant. On this December morning, none of that mattered. Inside the patrol car, Williams stared forward, breathing slowly. He wasn't angry. He was confused. He had followed every instruction, answered every question. He had worn his uniform properly, carried valid identification. And still, he was treated like a criminal. Officer Ricks walked ahead, paperwork in hand. Confident, he believed this would end like the others. A quick arrest. A closed case. No consequences. What he didn't realize was this. He hadn't just arrested the wrong man. He had exposed a system that had protected him for years, and it was about to collapse. Officer Troy Ricks was 34 years old. He had been a deputy sheriff for 8 years. On paper, his record looked clean. No suspensions, no demotions, no discipline. But paper never told the whole story. In the black community, Ricks's name was known, not with respect, with caution. 4 complaints had been filed against him before this day. All 4 from black citizens. All 4 followed the same pattern. Stopped for no clear reason. Questioned aggressively. Detained longer than necessary. And every single case was closed. Not enough evidence. The department said. Nothing happened to Ricks. One complaint came from a black pastor. He was driving a church van. The name of the church clearly printed on the side. Ricks stopped him anyway. Held him for 45 minutes. The explanation. The van looked suspicious. Another complaint came from a black college student. He was sitting on a park bench, reading a book. Ricks called for backup. Said the student matched a description. There was no description. A third came from a black business owner. The man was standing outside his own store, watching the front door. Ricks accused him of acting strangely. The man showed proof of ownership. Still detained. Each time, Ricks walked away. Each time, the message was clear. This behavior was tolerated. No consequences meant no correction. No correction meant escalation. And now, standing at a gas station on a December morning, Ricks did what he had always done. He saw a black man. He assumed wrongdoing. The uniform didn't stop him. The medals didn't stop him. Years of unchecked power had taught him one thing. He could do this. And nothing would happen. At least, that's what he believed. Because this time, the man he arrested wasn't just another citizen. He was a United States Marine. And this time, the silence around Ricks was about to break. The patrol car rolled into the sheriff's station just after 11. Sergeant David Williams stepped out slowly. Handcuffs still on. Dress uniform still pressed and spotless except for the dust now clinging to the knees. As he was escorted inside, the room changed. Conversations stopped. Keyboards paused mid-click. Every eye went to the uniform. Then the medals. Then to the officer walking behind him. At the booking desk stood Sergeant Mike Torres. Torres was a veteran. 2 tours in Iraq with the U.S. Army. He had seen combat. He had seen real medals. And the moment Williams walked in, Torres knew something was wrong. He stood up slowly and took a closer look. Purple hearts. Bronze star. You don't fake those. Torres turned to Ricks. His voice low and controlled. This man is a real Marine. He said, "What the hell did you do?" Ricks didn't raise his voice. He was acting suspicious. He replied. He reached for something. He reached for his ID. Torres shot back. Because you asked him to. The room stayed silent. Torres walked around the desk, pulled a key from his pocket, and unlocked the handcuffs. "I'm sorry," he said to Williams. "This should never have happened." Williams rubbed his wrists but said nothing. He had learned long ago sometimes silence was safer. Torres wasn't finished. He checked the military ID. The holographic seal. The photo. Perfect match. Dog tags, correct format. Deployment papers, official orders. Signatures. Contact numbers. Everything checked out. Still, Torres followed procedure. He picked up the phone. "I'm calling Camp Lejeune," he said. Ricks shifted slightly. It was the first sign of unease, because once that call was made, this arrest would no longer belong to him, and neither would the consequences. Sergeant Torres held the phone to his ear. The room stayed quiet. He gave the name calmly. Sergeant David Williams, United States Marine Corps. A pause. Then Torres straightened his posture. "Yes, sir. I understand." He glanced down at the paperwork again, even though he already knew the answer. "Yes. S. Dress uniform. Medals present." Another pause. The voice on the other end didn't hesitate. 3 deployments. 2 Purple Hearts. Bronze Star with Valor. Torres nodded slowly. "Yes. Sir. I see." He lowered the phone slightly, looked across the room, and locked eyes with Officer Ricks. Then he spoke again. "Sir, may I ask why this Marine was arrested?" There was silence on the line. Then a response. Torres's expression hardened. "I understand," he said quietly. "Yes. Sir, I'll stay available." He hung up. For a moment, no one spoke. Then Torres turned to Williams. "Your commanding officer has been notified," he said, "and they are not happy." Williams exhaled for the first time since the gas station. He nodded once. Torres wasn't finished. He stepped aside and made a second call. This one went higher. Command staff. Within minutes, emails were sent. Phones rang. Names were written down. Camp Lejeune didn't treat this as a misunderstanding. They treated it as a violation, because arresting a Marine in uniform without cause wasn't just a local mistake. It was a federal concern. By the time Officer Hicks finished his incident report, the chain of command had already moved past him. The Marine Corps notified headquarters. Headquarters notified the Pentagon. And when the Pentagon asked one question, was this arrest lawful, no one could say yes. That's when the Department of Justice was looped in. That's when federal investigators were alerted. Officer Hicks stood at his desk, typing. He believed paperwork would protect him. He had no idea the case no longer belonged to his department, or even his state. It now belonged to Washington. And it was moving fast. By late afternoon, Sergeant David Williams was released. No charges. No apology from the department. Just a quiet acknowledgement that he was free to go. Sergeant Torres didn't let him walk out alone. He grabbed his keys. "I'll drive you," he said. The ride was silent at first. Williams stared out the window as the town passed by gas stations, strip malls. Ordinary life continuing as if nothing had happened. 50 miles earlier, he had been pumping gas. Now, he was processing something far heavier. When they reached his mother's house, the porch light was on. She opened the door, smiling. Then she saw the uniform. Then she saw her son's face. The smile faded. She hugged him tightly. And then she cried. Later that evening, Sergeant Torres stayed for dinner. He shook Williams's hand before leaving. "Not all of us are like him," he said quietly, "and I'm sorry you had to prove that." Williams nodded. But outside that house, something else was already happening. At the gas station, witnesses had uploaded videos, multiple angles, clear footage. A Marine in full dress uniform, hands raised, ordered to the ground. Within 1 hour, the first clip hit social media. Caption: Marine arrested at gas station for wearing his uniform. By nightfall, it had hundreds of thousands of views. Veterans shared it. Active duty soldiers shared it. Comments flooded in. "He survived war, but not a gas station. This is how we treat our heroes. Service doesn't protect black veterans." By midnight, local news picked it up. By morning, national networks were calling. And Officer Hicks's name, once whispered quietly in the community, was now being spoken across the country. This wasn't going away. It was just getting started. By the next morning, the video was everywhere. Local stations ran it on repeat. Then regional outlets picked it up. By noon, national networks followed. CNN, MSNBC, Fox News. Different politics. Same footage. A Marine in full dress uniform, ordered to the ground, handcuffed at a gas station. By midday, the hashtag number, Justice for Williams, was trending nationwide. Veterans organizations reacted immediately. The VFW released a statement. The American Legion followed. "This is unacceptable," they said. "No service member should be treated this way." Then came the official response. The Department of Justice confirmed it had opened a civil rights investigation. The FBI was assigned to review the arrest. Federal agents arrived in the county that same day. They requested body cam footage, dispatch logs, incident reports. And while investigators focused on the gas station, another team looked backward. They pulled Officer Hicks's personnel file. What they found wasn't random. 4 prior complaints, all involving black citizens. All dismissed. Agents laid them side by side. Same language. Same escalation. Same lack of cause. A pattern. What had once been ignored at the local level now looked very different under federal review. Hicks was placed on administrative leave. His badge and service weapon were taken. For the first time in 8 years, he wasn't protected by silence. Meanwhile, the Pentagon released a brief but powerful statement. We are aware of the incident involving a United States Marine. We are coordinating fully with the Department of Justice. That single sentence said everything. This wasn't about one arrest anymore. It was about whether the system would finally hold one of its own accountable. 3 days after the arrest, everything changed. Federal prosecutors stepped in. This was no longer an internal review, no longer an administrative matter. The Department of Justice filed charges, serious ones. First, assault on a United States service member. Under federal law, that alone carried severe penalties. Second, deprivation of rights under color of law. Using a badge to strip someone of their constitutional rights. Third, false imprisonment. Detaining a man without lawful cause. Fourth, official misconduct. Filing reports that contradicted video evidence. And finally, a hate crime enhancement. Because investigators didn't see an isolated mistake. They saw a pattern. Officer Hicks was terminated immediately. His badge was taken. His gun was taken. His pension was frozen. The department issued a brief statement. We take these matters seriously. But for many watching, it felt late. Too late. Hicks's lawyer spoke to the press. My client believed the uniform might be fake. Prosecutors responded with one question. What did the jacket say? The answer was unavoidable. Us Marines. The defense argued procedure. Prosecutors played the footage. There was no procedure for arresting someone pumping gas. Every explanation collapsed. Meanwhile, Sergeant Williams stayed silent. He didn't do interviews. Didn't post statements. He returned to base. Back to duty. But the damage was already done. Because this case was no longer just about what happened at a gas station. It was about how many times similar cases never made it this far. And now, the country was watching what would happen next. The trial took place in federal court. Not a county courthouse. Not a local hearing. This case belonged to the Department of Justice now. 12 jurors were selected. Men and women from different backgrounds. Seated in silence as the charges were read. The prosecution didn't begin with words. They began with video. The gas station footage filled the courtroom screen. Sergeant Williams at pump number 4. Dress uniform. Medals visible. Officer Hicks approaching. Hands on belt. Voice rising. Hands up. On the ground. The jury watched Williams kneel. They saw the cuffs close around his wrists. No sudden movement. No resistance. No threat. Then the prosecution shifted. They introduced Williams's service record. 3 deployments to Afghanistan. 2 Purple Hearts. Bronze Star with valor. The Bronze Star citation was read aloud. Williams running into gunfire. Dragging 3 wounded Marines to safety. The courtroom stayed silent. Military experts testified next. They explained the uniform. Properly worn. Correct medals. Correct placement. Could this uniform be fake? The prosecutor asked. No. The expert replied. Not without extensive fabrication. And even then, it would fail immediate verification. The defense tried to respond. My client did not recognize the uniform. The prosecutor stood. What did the jacket say? The defense hesitated. Us Marines. The answer echoed. Another argument followed. My client followed procedure. The prosecution replayed the footage. There is no procedure, they said calmly, for arresting someone for pumping gas. One by one, the defenses collapsed. By the time closing arguments ended, the truth was unavoidable. This wasn't confusion. It was abuse of power. And now, it was in the jury's hands. The jury didn't take long. After hours of testimony and days of evidence, they deliberated for less than 4 hours. When they returned, the courtroom stood. The foreperson looked down at the paper in their hands. On count 1, guilty. Assault on a United States service member. Count 2, guilty. Deprivation of rights under color of law. Count 3, guilty. False imprisonment. Count 4, guilty. Official misconduct. Count 5, guilty. Hate crime enhancement. Officer Troy Hicks didn't react. No anger. No protest. Just a fixed stare. Sentencing came weeks later. The judge entered the courtroom slowly. A Navy veteran, he looked at Hicks, then at Williams, and then he spoke. "You didn't see a Marine." The judge said, "You didn't see service. You didn't see sacrifice. You saw what you wanted to see." He paused. "You humiliated a man who has given more to this country than you ever will." The sentence was read clearly. 62 years in federal prison. No parole. The gavel struck once. Just once. In that moment, a career ended. A badge lost its power. And the courtroom understood something important. This wasn't revenge. This was accountability. The sentence didn't end the story. It opened another chapter. Months later, Sergeant David Williams stood in a very different room. Not a courtroom. Not a gas station. Congress. Cameras lined the walls. Lawmakers filled the seats. Williams wore a suit, this time not his uniform, but his posture was the same. Calm. Straight. Controlled. "I have PTSD from combat," he said. But what happened at that gas station was worse. In Afghanistan, he explained, he knew who the enemy was. He knew where danger came from. At the gas station, he said quietly, "I was the enemy in my own country." The room stayed silent. Williams spoke about kneeling on concrete, about metals pressing into the ground, about being 50 miles from his mother's house. "I went to war for this country," he said. "I shouldn't have to go to war with it just to come home." His testimony changed things. The Pentagon issued new directives. Police departments were required to verify military status through official channels before detaining service members in uniform. Williams helped push forward legislation, the Service Member Protection Act. His arrest footage became mandatory training material. Recruits across the country now watch that video. Not to shame one officer, but to remind them what power looks like when it goes unchecked. Williams also filed a civil lawsuit. The county settled. $16.8 million. The largest police misconduct settlement in state history. But Williams was clear. Money doesn't fix this. Some wounds don't heal with checks. Officer Hicks disappeared from public life. No badge, no authority, no uniform. But the system that protected him for years, that question remains. Because Williams had advantages most people don't. He had medals. He had documentation. He had video. He had the Pentagon. Most victims have none of that. Their stories don't trend. Their cases don't reach federal court. So the question lingers. How many heroes have to kneel before accountability becomes automatic? How many uniforms have to be ignored before we decide what they actually mean? Because if justice only arrives when it goes viral, then justice isn't guaranteed. It's conditional. And that's the real story. This wasn't just about one racist cop or one Marine. It was about who gets believed, who gets protected, and who gets seen. If stories like this matter to you, stay with us. Because the next case is already happening somewhere. And the only question is whether anyone is watching.